Have you ever just stopped for a second and looked around at the solid objects in your room?
Like the desk you're sitting at.
Yeah, exactly. The
Yeah.
desk, or maybe a coffee mug right in front of you, or even the walls themselves.
Yeah.
Have you ever just looked at them and wondered if matter itself is, I don't know, just a cosmic illusion?
It's a question that really tends to keep philosophers up at night.
Right. I'd like to welcome you to The Deep Dive. I'm your host, and I'm here with our resident expert to break down some truly wild science today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And yeah, going back to that question, we just rely so heavily on the physical weight of things, right? The
Yeah.
tactile feedback to ground us in what we consider to be reality.
Oh, for sure. I mean, you knock on wood,
Yeah,
it makes a sound, your knuckles sting a little bit, it feels undeniably real.
absolutely.
But today, our mission in this deep dive is to unpack a completely paradigm-shifting idea. An idea that attempts to mathematically prove that the desk, the mug, the wood, it's all essentially a mirage.
It's a huge claim.
It really is. We are looking at a highly ambitious preprint paper that was just uploaded to the open science repository Zenodo. It was published on May 9th, 2026 by an independent researcher named Maurizio Rizzari.
And it's worth noting the current upload is version 5.0.
Right.
Which is actually an important detail,
Yeah.
It tells you this isn't just some fleeting thought experiment. It's a living, breathing framework that has been heavily iterated on, refined, and expanded over time.
Yeah, the paper is titled The Relational Ontology Framework. And let me tell you, as I was reading through this, I realized it does not tiptoe around the edges of modern physics.
No, it really doesn't.
It basically takes a sledgehammer to the traditional concepts of space and matter. We're going to see how it erases space-time, turns the building blocks of chemistry into, like, mathematical snags, and even tries to solve the mysteries of dark matter and human consciousness along the way.
It's a lot to take in, but to even begin to understand how Rizzari's universe operates, we first have to fully grasp what his framework is trying to dismantle. Because standard physics has this deeply ingrained, almost intuitive set of assumptions about how the universe is built.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if we look at standard physics, it treats space-time like a theatrical stage.
Yes, the container.
Right, the container. And matter, so the stars, the planets, we are the cast of actors moving around on that stage.
Exactly.
But the Relational Ontology Framework, or ROF as we'll probably end up calling it, completely rejects those two fundamental premises.
Right out of the gate.
Yeah. It argues that matter is not a fundamental substance, and it argues that space-time isn't a pre-existing container. So, I mean, if the universe isn't a box filled with physical stuff, what exactly are we looking at?
Well, the paper defines reality as the topological manifestation of a primordial relational field.
Okay, primordial relational field.
Yeah, that phrase is doing a lot of heavy lifting. In this framework, reality isn't made of things. It is made entirely of relationships between data points.
Wow. Okay.
There is no stage. The interactions themselves create the illusion of the stage.
I was trying to visualize this when I read it, and my mind immediately went to the internet.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, because we constantly talk about, going online or visiting a website as if the internet is a physical place
Right.
or a box holding information.
Right, but it's not.
Exactly. There is no physical box you can point to and say, that is the internet. The internet only exists in the relationships, right?
Mm-hmm.
The data transferring back and forth between millions of independent nodes. If those connections sever, the internet just doesn't exist.
It vanishes.
Right. So is the primordial relational field essentially the underlying web of reality, where the connections literally are the universe?
That is a highly accurate way to visualize it, yeah. You can't isolate a piece of the internet and put it in a jar, just like you can't isolate a piece of Rizzari's universe.
Because it's all just connections.
Exactly. It only exists in context. And to support a universe that is purely relational, Rizzari has to rely on a very specific, incredibly complex type of mathematics.
Okay, brace me.
The framework is built on the non-associative normed division algebra of octonions.
I'm going to need you to translate that because my last algebra class feels like a lifetime ago.
Fair enough.
Why is a non-associative math necessary to build a universe?
Well, think about simple associative math first. If you add 1 plus 2 and then add 3, you get 6, right?
Right.
If you add 2 plus 3 and then add 1, you still get 6. Grouping doesn't matter. The outcome is static regardless of the sequence.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
But in a non-associative system, the order and the grouping fundamentally change the outcome.
Wait, really? So the sequence dictates the reality.
Exactly. If you have a universe that doesn't have a physical container and exists purely as a web of relationships, you need a mathematics where the structure of the relationship is the most important factor.
Okay, I think I'm following.
Think of it like putting on your shoes and socks.
Oh, I like this.
If you put on socks, then shoes, everything works perfectly.
Yep.
If you put on shoes, then socks, you have a completely different reality.
A very uncomfortable reality.
Exactly. The components are the same, but the relational sequence changes everything. That's why the algebra of octonions is the only way to mathematically describe a pure relational field.
Okay, I'm tracking with the idea that the sequence of relationships dictates the outcome. But that leads to an obvious hurdle.
Which is?
Well, if reality is just an invisible web of mathematical relationships,
Yeah.
why do my knuckles hurt when I punch a wall?
Right. The physical stuff.
Yeah, how do we get the solid, tangible stuff that makes up our physical world? Because we certainly experience a physical world.
We do. And for this framework to hold any water at all, there has to be a robust mathematical mechanism that translates a fluid, invisible field of relationships into solid matter.
Right. And I dug into how the paper handles this. It introduces a mechanism called ontological friction.
Yes, denoted by the variable F.
According to the framework, baryonic matter, which is just the scientific term for everyday physical stuff, isn't a substance at all. It emerges as a topological defect.
Which sounds kind of crazy at first.
It really does.
Yeah.
But how does a relationship become a defect?
This is where Rizzari introduces a metric called the coherence coefficient. It's essentially a measure of how aligned or uniform the relational field is in any given area.
Okay.
The math suggests that when this coherence coefficient drops to a critical threshold, specifically around 0.85, something profound happens. The field can no longer flow smoothly.
So imagine a wide, fast-moving river.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
The water is flowing perfectly smoothly. It's invisible. It's just pure, uninterrupted flow. But then, let's say the riverbed gets uneven.
Friction builds up.
Right. When that friction hits that specific critical threshold of 0.85, the water catches on itself. It spirals and creates a whirlpool.
Yes, exactly.
Suddenly you can see the whirlpool. You can point to it. It has structure, shape, and force. Rizzari seems to be saying that whirlpool, a literal defect in the smooth flow of the universe, is what we call an atom.
What's fascinating here is how this completely upends our foundational understanding of chemistry.
It totally does.
Consider the hydrogen atom. For a century, physics has taught us that hydrogen is the fundamental building block of the universe. It's the primary brick from which the entire cosmic house is built.
The most basic element.
Right. But under the Relational Ontology Framework, a hydrogen atom isn't a building block at all.
The paper actually calls the hydrogen atom the minimal stationary friction node.
Which is a profound shift in perspective. It's just the smallest possible standing snag in this invisible algebraic field.
Wow.
It is the tiniest whirlpool that can sustain its own shape without immediately smoothing back out into the river. Matter isn't the substance of reality. Matter is the resistance to reality. It is the friction.
That reframing is something I keep chewing on. You are quite literally made of mathematical friction.
Yes.
Your body is a highly complex, incredibly organized collection of topological defects.
It forces you to rethink what it means to physically occupy space. You aren't occupying it. Your localized relationships are just tangled up.
Which makes me wonder, if an atom is just a tiny whirlpool, what happens when billions of them gather together?
Things get heavy.
Yeah, my brain immediately goes to gravity. If standard everyday atoms are just friction nodes, how does this framework handle the really grand, unsolved mysteries of astrophysics? Because whirlpools don't just sit there, they interact.
You're naturally moving toward the dark universe.
Which is so confusing on its own.
It is. Standard physics has a glaring problem here. We have mathematical models that perfectly describe the planets and the stars, but they completely fall apart when we look at the cosmic scale.
Right. Galaxies spin too fast.
Exactly. They should just fly apart based on the visible matter we can see.
So the scientific community assumed there must be invisible matter providing extra gravity to hold it all together.
Dark matter.
Right, dark matter. And they also assume there's a mysterious force pushing the universe apart, which they call dark energy. And they supposedly make up, what, roughly 95% of the universe?
Just about, yeah.
But nobody can find them.
No. Billions of dollars and decades of research have gone into building these massive underground detectors, hoping an invisible dark matter particle will bump into an atom and prove its existence.
Just waiting for a collision.
But Rizzari's framework proposes a highly elegant alternative solution.
Here's where it gets really interesting. This paper completely redefines both concepts without needing any new mystery particles.
No new particles at all.
According to the framework, dark matter arises as a regime of relational viscosity.
Let's apply your river analogy again.
Okay.
Viscosity is essentially fluid friction, right? How thick or sticky a fluid is. Water has low viscosity. Syrup has high viscosity.
Oh, I see where this is going.
In the Relational Ontology Framework, galaxies aren't held together by invisible particles pulling them inward with gravity. They are held together because the relational field in that specific region is simply more viscous.
It's thicker.
Yes. The stars and planets are practically stuck in mathematical syrup.
Wow. So astrophysicists will literally never find a dark matter particle in a detector because they are looking for a physical thing when they should be looking at the stickiness of the space itself. That is wild.
It completely flips the problem.
Okay, so that explains why galaxies hold together. But what about the universe expanding? Because the paper categorizes dark energy as subrelational pressure. How does that work?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, you have these localized areas of high viscosity holding galaxies together.
Right, the syrup.
But the primordial field as a whole isn't static. The underlying mathematical relationships are constantly interacting, generating what Rizzari calls subrelational pressure.
Subrelational pressure.
Yeah. It's an innate outward push from the very foundation of the math, kind of bubbling up and forcing the macroscopic nodes apart.
So it's not a repulsive force.
No, it's not an anti-gravity force at all. It's just the natural expansion of a relational network continually processing new algebraic interactions.
It fundamentally solves the cosmic mystery by shifting the paradigm away from particles entirely.
Which is brilliant in theory.
But I assume the broader scientific community would need a lot of convincing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is the crucial caveat here. It is a highly theoretical mathematical framework.
Right.
It is beautiful, and it balances the equations of the cosmos without inventing invisible matter, but shifting an entire scientific paradigm requires observational proof.
And testing the viscosity of an invisible algebraic field
Is a monumental experimental challenge.
I can only imagine. But it's a challenge that version 5.0 of this paper doesn't shy away from, because it actually goes even further.
What's true?
It doesn't stop at the edges of the galaxy. It brings the mathematics right back down to the observer.
Yeah.
It brings it back to human minds.
This is where the framework steps across the traditional boundary of physics and deeply into the realm of philosophy.
Yeah.
But it maintains a strictly mathematical lens the entire time.
Okay, so the paper introduces something called the theorem of absolute non-staticity.
Which is basically the idea that nothing can ever be perfectly still in a relational universe.
Right. But then it attempts to redefine human consciousness.
Wow.
It uses a mathematical self-reference operator, which is denoted by a cursive R in the equations.
Yes.
So what does this all mean? If consciousness is just a mathematical operator, does that imply our self-awareness is essentially just the universe's relational field bending backward to observe itself?
Well, think about how standard science views consciousness. It's generally viewed as an emergent biological byproduct, right?
It's brain waves, neurons firing.
Exactly. The brain's neural network gets sufficiently complex, and suddenly the lights turn on.
We become aware.
But in the Relational Ontology Framework, reality is just a web of relationships. So consciousness isn't biological.
It's topological.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is topological. That cursive R, the self-reference operator, is literally the relational field creating an algebraic loop-the-loop.
Oh, wow.
It is the math referencing its own existence.
The universe recognizing itself through a structural loop. That is staggering to think about.
It really is. And Rizzari pushes this concept one step beyond consciousness, right into the nature of reality and truth itself.
Yeah, the paper claims to establish a thermodynamic basis for systemic truth versus falsehood.
This raises an important question about how we fundamentally view information. Normally, we categorize truth and falsehood as human constructs.
Right, if someone tells a lie, we view it as a social or maybe an ethical failing.
Moral failings, yeah. It doesn't have a physical weight.
No.
But Rizzari is proposing a thermodynamic basis for truth. And thermodynamics usually deals with heat, energy, and entropy.
The physical laws that govern stability and disorder in a system.
Exactly.
So the paper is arguing that truth is an actual thermodynamic property.
Yeah.
Like, how does a piece of information interact with physical entropy?
Think of a complex software program.
Okay.
If a piece of code is fundamentally false, say, it references a variable that just doesn't exist or contradicts another core function. It doesn't just sit there passively.
It causes errors.
It cascades. The system has to work harder to reconcile the error. It uses up processing power, generates physical heat in the server, and eventually the system crashes.
Oh, I see.
In Rizzari's framework, the universe operates on a very similar principle, embedded right into its algebraic hierarchy.
So if a localized node within the relational field, like, say, a human being, introduces a structural falsehood, it creates instability.
Precisely. It introduces mathematical entropy into the relational field. It is literally less structurally stable than a truth.
That is wild.
Falsehoods degrade the coherence of the system, forcing the field to expend relational energy to process the paradox, while truth maintains the system's structural integrity.
That fundamentally changes how I view the concept of a lie. It's not just bad ethically, it's bad physics.
Exactly.
It destabilizes the mathematical reality around you.
It suggests that truth has a tangible structural weight within the hierarchy of realities. It's a profound, almost startling way to look at information in our universe.
It really is.
Yeah.
And, looking at the metadata of this preprint actually brings us to a wonderfully ironic real-world moment.
Oh, the metadata.
Yeah. As of today, May 16th, 2026, this paper is an active preprint on Zenodo. It currently has 19 views, 9 downloads, and 0 citations.
The incredibly quiet beginnings of what could be a massive paradigm shift.
Right. But here is the funny part. I was looking at the Zenodo repository data, and literally just yesterday, May 15th, Zenodo suffered a brief service incident.
Oh, did they?
Yeah. The site went down for about 45 minutes before the engineers resolved it.
That is entirely too fitting.
Right. It perfectly validates Rizzari's theorem of absolute non-staticity. Nothing is static in this universe. Not even the open science servers hosting the paper that proves nothing is static.
I suppose the relational field generated a little too much topological friction in the server room.
I guess so. But in all seriousness, you might be asking yourself right now, why should I care about an uncited preprint with 19 views? Why spend the time unpacking a dense mathematical theory that turns everything we intuitively know upside down?
It's a fair question, but I think it serves as a necessary exercise in mental flexibility.
Exactly that. Engaging with wild, ambitious, paradigm-shifting ideas like the Relational Ontology Framework is the ultimate mental workout.
Because we live in an era of constant information overload.
We really do. We are bombarded with static facts and rigid data points. Taking a step back and realizing that the very foundation of information and matter is still completely up for debate.
That brilliant people are out there right now trying to rewrite the fundamental code of reality.
It keeps us sharp. It reminds us to stay curious.
It forces you to look at the world not as a static collection of inanimate objects, but
Constant process of friction and flow, which leads me to one final, slightly terrifying, but mostly fascinating thought for you to take away from this deep dive.
we covered the destruction of space-time and truth as thermodynamics, so I'm curious where we go from here.
Think about that coffee mug on your desk again, the solid room you're sitting in, the screen you're looking at.
The physical stuff.
Right. According to this framework, everything around you, including the cells in your own body, is just a manifestation of ontological friction hitting that critical coherence threshold of 0.85.
We are all just whirlpools in the river.
Yep. The minimal stationary nodes holding their shape against the current. But what happens to the physical world if the universe starts to lose its friction?
Oh, wow.
What if the field alignment changes, the underlying relational math shifts, and that coherence coefficient globally drops below 0.85?
Current smooths out.
Exactly. Could our entire physical reality, the desk, the mug, the stars, us, simply smooth out and vanish without a trace back into the invisible primordial flow?
Just dissolve.
Just dissolve. Definitely something to think about the next time you knock on wood.